Here are some specific behaviors that skeptics engage in that we don't always understand as an intuitive empath. Hi, my name is Leah Chantel, and today I'm talking about behaviors that skeptics engage in that we don't always understand. So the first one is that they're trying really hard to be perfect. Now, sometimes intuitive empathic people do this too, but I think it comes from a very different perspective when you're a skeptic. So they really want to make things in their work perfect to the point of like absolute scientific precision. Like everything has to be just so they can win. And then they'll be very obsessed with winning over the competition, and they'll be focusing really hard to get that project to its most perfect state. Usually that's how a lot of very intellectually minded skeptics will think about their work. And as intuitive empaths, we don't always kind of understand that because we value more work-life balance. And so we value taking a break and taking a step back sometimes from our projects in order to have more creativity, more insight, whereas skeptics will just go, and be very one-track minded and very focused on something until it's perfect. Or even they're not actively working on something, but they'll be thinking about it and thinking about how it could be better, or worrying about what the competition is like and whether or not they'll win. So they're very concentrated on winning when they're in competition and at work. And we don't see work that way as intuitive empaths. We're more collaborators. We more want to reach out to other people and assist them and share knowledge, whereas the more skeptical mindset is more that we're all in competition with each other. Of course, there can be some variations. Sometimes intuitive people think they're in competition, and sometimes skeptics do collaborate. It does happen, but usually it's the other way around. The next behavior that skeptics engage in that intuitive empathic people don't always understand is that they like to keep busy to look good. So they could be busy with something that's kind of meaningless, like they could be doing the same task over and over again. Maybe they're cleaning their desk over and over again obsessively, so everything's just perfect or just so, in order to look productive. I mean, that's a silly example, but you know what I'm talking about. It's those people at work who are kind of doing meaningless tasks over and over again, but they're trying to look busy. They're trying to look good in front of the boss. Whereas intuitive empathic people tend to be a bit more relaxed. Like, it's not that we don't care, but we have this self-belief that we're good enough if we're healed as intuitive empaths. Or maybe we don't believe we're good enough, and then we are behaving similarly to the skeptic, where we're obsessively doing tasks over and over again to please people. But having said that, it's a very common behavior that happens at work, and sometimes it is a practical thing to do depending on what your boss is like. And so sometimes it's a coping mechanism that works for people, but then even if it worked at one period of your life, people can continue doing that and carrying it over to another area of their life where it doesn't work anymore, and it's to their own detriment that they're continuing to behave like that. Which brings me on to the next point, and that is people pleasing. So skeptical people can be very concerned with the approval of others, and so they're working very hard to gain that approval from other people. And intuitive empaths who are not fully on their journey yet can behave sometimes this way too, where they're really trying to get approval, but sometimes it's from different people. Like if they're kind of developing and they're starting on their journey, but they're not fully integrated yet as intuitive empaths, they may be trying to get the approval or validation from a spiritual teacher rather than a boss, right? Or a parent. But then the skeptical people will be trying to get it from a parent or a boss. And we may be different sources of approval that people are going after, but it's a version of going for approval. Whereas with your totally healed and you're totally on your path as an intuitive empath, you're not concerned about people pleasing. You're not continuing to do work that's going to build up resentment in you just because it was a good coping mechanism in the past. You're more healed and you're more comfortable in your own skin, on your own path and your own journey. The next thing that skeptical people do that we don't always understand is that they cut people off and they don't want to talk. So skeptical people can be very quick to judge people and get rid of them in their lives. Or maybe they're the opposite, and sometimes they're quite needy and they keep people in their lives longer that are kind of negative, but they're too scared to lose the relationship, so they keep them in their life. So it's kind of like one way or the other. They cut people off fast, or they keep people in their lives for not very good reasons who are negative. Whereas intuitive, empathic people, when we're more developed and more along our path, we're getting good at being discerning. We're getting good at letting go of people who are no longer a good fit for our lives. But I think that's a challenge that everybody faces, both skeptical and intuitive people, is discerning who belongs in our life and who doesn't. And we can all struggle with that from time to time. So we can actually relate to each other on this one. But usually intuitive, empathic people are a little bit better at setting boundaries and knowing who's really appropriate to be in your life and who's not. And they're not concerned about like trying to win or get approval. It's not about trying to win over the really difficult boss. It's more like, who's a good influence in my life that I want to keep in their life, whether they're a boss or they're a friend. It doesn't matter how high on the status totem pole there are. Whereas skeptical people are a little bit more concerned with status, and they're a little more willing to work towards winning the approval of someone who's perceived as being wealthy or powerful or making things happen in their lives, right? Whereas intuitive, empathic people, we just care that the energy is good in our lives. We don't really care about people who are rich and powerful, but who don't treat us very well. We tend to not like them and just kind of find ways to gently let them go and cut them out of our lives. Whereas skeptical people are a little bit more prone to try to get their approval, even though it's not good for them. And then the next point that I want to talk about, that skeptical people behave in this way that intuitives don't always understand. It's that they're trying to get something in life like their life depends on it. Like they're trying to attain material wealth or material goods. Like they want to get the big house. They want to get the fancy car. And it's not that intuitive, empathic people don't dream about those things. We do, because we believe in manifestation and we believe that anything is possible. But we do it in a more gentle way where we allow the universe to unfold and to reveal to us what's actually the best and highest version of our lives that we're meant to have. Whereas skeptical people will hold on to those things and be quite stubborn and go after those things even if it's to their own detriment. Like maybe they're so obsessed with getting that fancy house and the fancy car that they put themselves in a tremendous amount of debt to get it. I'm not saying intuitive empaths never make those mistakes, because we could. We're all human, but we're more aware of our work-life balance and what's really good for us, and we think more mindfully about what's the most important thing to us. We're not really codependent on that sense of approval from other people, and so we're not motivated in the same way to go after material things. And ironically, I think we're more likely to get them as intuitive empaths because we are a little bit more detached and we don't necessarily need to have those fancier things. Ironically, wealthy people and those connections who can give us those things are more attracted to us because we are a bit more detached and less obsessed with trying to get everything. And so we're actually more likely to get those things. But it depends on the situation. I mean, some rich people really do enjoy that attention of people competitively trying to go after those rich aspects of life, like their cars or their homes. They like having the status and the attention. So it depends. So some wealthy people do enjoy that. So sometimes this more skeptical person does win the prize. They do get the fancier house and the fancier car because they're willing to do anything to get it, right? But I think a lot of wealthier people are more sophisticated than that. I think it's actually a myth that people think that wealthier people are evil because it shows up a lot in the media. Like when you watch a lot of cartoons or TV shows. I read somewhere that after the 70s, there was this radical shift where bosses and corporate leaders were portrayed as evil quite a bit in media after the 1970s, whereas they weren't previously. They were perceived as heroes in older media. But that influence of seeing bosses and seeing really wealthy people as evil has really seeped into the consciousness of people. So they either think they have to be a bad person in order to go after things, and so they're trying to do things in the wrong way, Or they want to be a good person and therefore they have to push away all material things and live a life of a poor person because that's the only way to be moral. And that's just not true either way. You can go after material things with a sense of detachment, and ironically, you're more likely to get the things that you want in life when you're a little bit more detached about getting them. And then sometimes though, that detachment, maybe you don't get it because you're open to other things in life as well. But then that's also a good thing because you're going to have a good life no matter what, because you trust that the universe is going to give you the good thing that you need in life. Whereas the more skeptically minded person will be going after the material things and it's like life or death and I have to get it, right? So keep those differences in mind, that these are the way people think differently, and it's important to keep that in mind, especially if you're in a workplace and you're an intuitive empath and the person sitting in the cubicle next to you is a skeptic. That's the way they're going to kind of go after the prize and go after things that work. So it's good to be aware of that so you're prepared for certain workplace situations and don't necessarily trust everybody blindly. Be discerning about who you give your attention to and who you tell your secrets to. You want to find those safe communities where you can do that with people you can really be authentic with and really trust, because that's really good for you and it's good for your intuition. But you also don't want to share it with the wrong person who's more skeptically minded and more likely to manipulate your insight into something that benefits them. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions about this video, definitely put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to review them and answer some, and maybe you have some experiences about the differences between skeptics and intuitive empaths. So if you'd like to leave a comment about that too, I'd be really interested in reading them. If you liked the video, definitely click like, and don't forget to hit subscribe to see more videos. I hope you're all having an amazing holiday so far, and take care everybody. Bye now.